Hey, what's up guys? So you've probably noticed in my videos that I tend to focus on the windshield mount radar detectors the most, right? With those, there's a lot more options available. They're more affordable. They're super easy to test and swap out when a new one comes out. Just throw it on the windshield, plug it in. It's super easy, right? I've done some videos on remote detectors, but those are a little tougher to install. It's a lot more involved to power it, to wire it into your car, to mount it out in the grill and put speakers and displays and controllers and all that stuff in your car. So it's a little bit tougher to work with. In the past, what I've done is I'll do like kind of temporary installs. I might, if it's something I'm really interested in, actually, install it properly in my car to make my life easier. I've done things like I have a sun visor pouch that I use. And this is really nice. You can just take a radar detector, you put it in the pouch like this, and then just mount it on your sun visor like that, and then just wire it in here, and then you've got a nice temporary installation, which is pretty simple to do. So I just keep this actually under my passenger seat. I've also done things for testing purposes where we fabricated mounts to install a number of different detectors actually out on the grill where they're supposed to be, rather than having them mounted here, inside my car. Now, for the longest time, I've been wanting to do more videos and testing and just in general work with remotes. And so over the past week, I've actually been spending time installing a bunch of different remote detectors in my car. And as of today, I now have 4 different remote detectors all installed on my car. I've got the Stinger VIP, the Net Radar, the original STi-R, and the Radenso HD Plus. So now with all of these detectors, it makes it a lot easier to actually go in and test them. And so the question is now like, okay, cool, now I've finally got all these detectors installed on my car. Now what am I going to do with them? Well, I've already done long range testing with all these detectors. If you want to see the results of that, take a look at the link in the video description. So I'm not too interested in how do they, which one has the longest range. Like, that's cool. But what I'm personally more curious about, and kind of what got me started with all this, is I'm curious about specifically the filtering capabilities and the blind spot filtering. The Stinger is the one that I'm most interested in. There's been some talk recently of the new firmware that has come out, 4.0.50 and now 4.0.52. Apparently there's been some nice improvements with the Stinger, and that's kind of what started my whole desire to get back into remotes, right? So I'm going to be actually running this guy. I've got the Stinger here installed on the dash of my vehicle, and I've got my, windshield mounts as well. So I want to do some testing with the Stinger. I'm also really interested in the Net Radar. One thing that I can't really do easily is test the new Unidens against the Radenso XP and see how the blind spot filtering compares. Now the Net Radar, it's a remote version of the XP essentially, same underlying platform, BSM filtering capabilities. So having a detector that's way out in my grill that has like a whole car hood blocking, physically blocking between both detectors is really going to help alleviate any sort of potential interference issues. I don't think it's necessarily going to solve them completely. Something else I'm experimenting with, I've talked about in my other videos, is running 2 detectors in the car like this, the R1 and the R3. People in the forums lately have been commenting about testing the R3 and the red line, and there's been 4 people so far who have all found that those 2 stealth detectors are interfering with one another in their testing, and so that doesn't bode very well for testing 2 windshield mounts like this. So I'm really curious to try like, an R3 and a V1, and I'm also curious R3 versus Stinger, R3 versus Net Radar. So that's actually the stuff that I'm most interested in, is not so much the long range stuff, but more so the blind spot filtering, and having different remotes out on my grill I think is going to help make that process easier. Blind spot filtering testing and seeing which one is better can be really difficult sometimes. We've been talking about that kind of stuff on the forums, but I'm hoping this is something that can make the process a little bit easier, is to do more direct comparisons in that regard. So the way I have everything wired up, the Stinger antenna, it's mounted underneath my license plate. The Stinger is completely standalone. It's its own standalone system, right? Everything else actually plugs and integrates with the anti-laser priority. So what I have currently, the Net Radar, I'm currently running a single antenna Net Radar. I've got a second antenna, but I don't really have a good place to mount rear antennas in my car. I could add rear antennas later, but the Net Radar is currently plugged into the RG version 3 module, the RG3, and that plugs into the ALP. Now the Radenso HT Plus and the STi-R O use the older version of the RG module for the ALP. So instead of RGV3, it uses the RGV2 module, the older version of the radar GPS module. So the HT Plus is wired into the RG2, which is currently unplugged. And so what I have to do is I have to physically go under my car, unplug the RG3 module and plug in the RG2, and then switch ALP profiles to run the HT Plus. If I wanted to run the O, I'd have to do the exact same thing with the HT Plus, except I don't actually have the cable yet that runs from the O to the RG2 module, and so I still got to get that cable and run it. Once I get that, I'm going to have to then, number one, unplug the RG3 and switch to RG2. I'm also going to have to unplug the HT Plus and switch in the O. So it's not as easy as I would like to switch between all four systems. It is going to require, switching profiles with the ALP because they all plug into the ALP, and it is going to require rearranging some cables, unplugging some devices, plugging in others. So that'll be good for testing purposes, but it's not going to be something I can just quickly switch on the fly. That would be cool, to add something that would allow me to do that, but I don't have that capability yet. So this is primarily geared towards testing purposes specifically. The Stinger is the one, like I said, that I'm most interested in. Luckily, I can run that and whatever else I want at the same time. I can run a net radar and a R3 or whatever. I can do that pretty easily as well. And I figured since I'm going through the trouble of installing all these detectors in my car anyway, I might as well throw in the O and the HT Plus as well. I'm not really that interested in those detectors as much. The HT Plus, I know it's got great performance as well, but I've also got the Stinger and the R3, so that kind of defeats the purpose to a certain extent, especially with the fact that the R3 doesn't do lockouts and it doesn't do a frequency display. The O, useless on K-band, but an amazing performer on Ka-band. But again, because I've got the R3 now, it kind of defeats the purpose. I mean, this thing's also stealth. It's got great K-band performance. It's got even better performance on Ka-band. So other than having a visually stealth detector, there's no benefit to me at this point of the O, especially because I've got all the other remotes, So this isn't anything where it's like a necessary installation. This is like strictly testing. It's going to make it a lot easier to, when I go out and do testing, to see how they perform. Now, I don't have any sort of long distance testing scheduled. I can go out and do one, of course. The weather's now getting nice. You can probably notice I'm starting to sweat. So Seattle, it's getting hot in the summer. Luckily no rain, so I can go out and do radar detector testing. Anyway, with the lack of rain, I can do testing. I could do some testing, but I've done that before. But like I said, the main thing that I'm interested in is really the BSM filtering. So Stinger and Net Radar, primarily those two, versus, I don't know, V1 or Max 360 or R3 or whatever it is that I happen to be running on the windshield. I think having a remote and a windshield mount will give me more options to really kind of compare different detectors, different BSM filtering capabilities. So that's really why I'm doing this. And I just kind of wanted to go ahead and share this. And so I've been working on this past couple days or so, getting all the wiring and everything done. This morning I actually went to an installer and had him drill a hole through my firewall to allow me to run a bunch more cables through my firewall. So, it's down in the driver's area just above the pedals. So anyway, now that I've got everything in place, everything is powered in, it's clean, it's wired in, the cables are all tucked in and hidden out of the way, it would be cool to add a Max CI at some point and see how that fares. I've got room on my grill, so be cool to get one of those. I'd have to go out and buy one of those and pay for installation when I'd rather just buy the detector and plug it in myself. It's not a big deal to do. So anyway, that's kind of the latest as far as what I've been doing with my car. Now I have a bunch of different remotes installed. I guess I'm gonna have to be careful when I'm approaching curbs because I've got 3 detectors plus the Stinger out in the front, which is a little bit better in terms of positioning, but those other 3 are a little bit lower, so I definitely got to keep an eye out for curbs and whatnot. But anyway, just want to give you guys a quick update as far as the new remotes that I have finally installed in my car. And cool, so more stuff to come. Yay, I can finally do more videos talking about remotes in my car instead of just primarily focusing on windshield mounts. So I'm excited about that. Hope you guys are too. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.